everyone. This is Loretta Sernowski from Remax Fine Properties, your Canadian realtor in Arizona. Welcome to another episode of Living in Arizona. Today we have a very timely episode with our guest Jenny Redmond from PetsFly. And before the show, we were just talking about this new, pattern of opening the border. Can you take your pet across the border? Can you? Because of the screwworm thing. So Jenny and I are going to address that because I know a lot of people right now are planning to go to Rocky Point for the weekend and they are not sure if they are able to take their dogs. And there's a lot of people like my neighbors in Mexico that live in Rocky Point full time and they're going to Phoenix for the weekend and they're too scared to take their dog because they might not be able to bring them back. So before we get into the meat of that, Jenny, what exactly is your role at PetsFly? What are you?
Well, thanks for having me, Loretta. Very happy to be here to talk about how pets fly. My role, I'm the owner of the company, but I'm also a move coordinator, which means that I'm basically like a doggy, catty travel agent in that I assist people in preparing their pets for travel in all aspects. So health documentation, flights, flight kennels, anything and everything that you can imagine. Customs on the other end, if they're going internationally, we help with assist with lining all of that up.
And as a realtor that moves people from country to country, state to state, state to province, that is probably one of the most important questions that we get asked as realtors is, what about my dog? What about my cat? What about my birds? So right now we were just talking about the border between Arizona and Mexico, or the Mexican border, and this outbreak of screwworm. Can you tell us, as of right now, because we know we said things could change, as of right now, what is the law if someone wants to drive to Mexico and take their dog or cat?
So the requirement and regulation right now, I wouldn't call it quite a law because it doesn't go through Congress or approval that way. It's just the USDA and the US governments work with the other governments to compile the requirements for travel for animals. And with the screwworm scare, with I think there's 3 dogs now that have been confirmed with screwworm in Texas, 2 in Texas, 1 in New Mexico. The USDA 2 days ago, I believe it was, basically said, don't take your dogs to Mexico. Now, unfortunately, the USDA really can't say that. Mexico can allow whatever animals they want in. So it's up to Senacica, is basically the USDA, United States Department of Agriculture. It's their equivalent. And Senacica has indicated that they accept dogs across the border. They said there might be more stringent vetting to get your dog across. We always recommend that you get a health certificate for travel. It's actually not needed for travel into Mexico. However, with the stringent requirements and with what's going on, I feel that that's a better option, just to have your veterinarian do an exam, write a screwworm letter so that you have that document when you're crossing the border, so that hopefully you have less stringent requirements from the border agents.
I actually took my dogs last week to the vet in Mexico, did a very thorough exam, and then gave me a certificate. So I understand. Can you explain to everyone what exactly is screwworm?
Oh, not really. Unfortunately, it's a nasty, nasty disease. One of my coworkers was like, you should Google that. And I'm like, no, because I don't handle.
That's my handle that kind of.
No, I was like, I trust that it's a bad disease. I don't want to Google rabies either, but I know that it's a very bad and nasty disease. And that's why there's so many rules and laws set up against having rabies. Now, coming back from Mexico, I believe they are requiring the screwworm letter. So definitely want to go to the vet in Mexico to get that worm letter if you're returning to the U.S.
And like you said to me, well, it's okay to go to Mexico with your dog today, right now, at 11:08, but if you get down there, it may be a different story on Friday or whatever.
Exactly. And even the note on the USDA today says we will update as we continue to work on this. So it is definitely a very fluid situation right now. So something that's done, today, this morning, might change by this afternoon. So it's definitely best to check the USDA and the Seneseca websites before you decide on any type of travel for your pet.
Thank you for that. Now let's get on to more about you. How did you get started in this industry?
Well, I like talking about the pets better than myself, honestly. So 31 years ago, I had a daughter, and I decided I wanted to stay home with her and not send her to daycare every day. I was in a corporate job, and I was actually working for the Colorado Association of Realtors. So I've worked with lots of realtors in my day, but I felt I was missing her life. And one of my friends was doing pet food delivery and in the Denver area, and it was going great. So I thought, well, pets need to be delivered too. And I love dogs and cats, and let's try it out. So I jumped in with both feet.
And what exactly do you do? I know you said you inform people, but let's say I want to move from Scottsdale to Denver with my 2 dogs. Why am I reaching out to you, and what exactly do you do for me?
So Scottsdale to Denver, we can still help with that. We can assist. We do a few domestic transportations every year, but we mostly deal with international.
Yeah, so
we'll win the lottery and pick a destination in across the seas that you want to move to.
Yeah, let's say we're going to go to New Zealand.
New Zealand. Okay, you picked a doozy. Awesome. But it's great. New Zealand is fabulous. I've been there, and people are fabulous. So New Zealand, we would start by assisting you with the health requirements for New Zealand, which are very extensive. It's an island country, and they don't have rabies, and they don't want rabies. So they make countries that do still have rabies jump through lots of hoops to get the dogs there. So therefore, it's about a 6 to 8 month process. So we would start by first getting, the health documents in line and in order. And once all of those are in order and we have a travel date, then we would schedule the quarantine, because there's a 10-day quarantine on arrival into New Zealand. Even if you do everything right, if you don't do everything right, then that's a 30-day quarantine. We would book the flights. We get them checked in for their flights. We would advise you on their flight travel kennels, and we actually do a video chat with each and every client to measure their dogs to make sure that we have the right travel size crate for their move, because that's a very important part of the process as well. So to start the move, we do that with each and every client. But then on arrival, then we would, assist with booking the quarantine, and our agent would collect from the airport and then, either deliver them to you, or you can pick them up from quarantine after that's completed.
And so as far as the fee structure goes for having you handle my pet transportation, is that depending on where you're going? Is it depending on number of pets? Is it hourly?
All of the above, yes. Every variable is a different cost, and we actually have 3 members, almost 4, to training of a quote team that put together individualized quote for each and every client that reaches out to us, because it's so specific on routing pets. Different breeds can only go certain ways. Certain breeds aren't allowed into certain countries. So all of that research the quote team does prior to giving people a quote.
I'm just curious, certain breeds, can you give us an example of a breed that's not allowed somewhere?
Yes. So most of the fighting dog breeds Pit bulls are the most generic and one that people have heard of the most, but there's also the Dogo Argentino, the Tosa, which is like a Japanese fighting dog. So there's a list of about 5 to 6 breeds that are basically, they were bred for fighting, and most countries don't want those dogs to be transported. So the Dogo Argentino and the Pit Bull are the most common on that list.
What if you have a dog and you're not sure who he is?
That will then depend on how your veterinarian lists him on your rabies and paperwork. Sometimes DNA testing can help. Sometimes it can hurt. Most countries will not accept DNA testing as proof of a breed, though.
Okay.
It's more what your veterinarian has listed him as.
Gotcha. And what are the most popular international destinations from the States?
It changes from year to year, definitely. The UK is always a popular destination, and for the last couple of months, that's been my largest destination. I've had like 30 people go to the UK in the last 2 months, it seems like, which is good.
Are they there or moving there?
Some are snowbirds, so there was actually people who snowbird back and forth to the UK. There are people who are moving back, relocating back. There are people who are just moving there for jobs. So all types of situations. Military families who are getting stationed overseas, who we help with. Mm-hmm. Also, we've seen a big upswing in the last 2 years to people relocating to South America. So we've seen Uruguay, Colombia, Peru. So those countries in South America, we've seen a big upswing in the last couple of years. And then also Iceland. We've seen a big uptick in Iceland, and it's not an easy country to get to.
Well, right now it might feel kind of nice to be there.
In the middle of summertime in Arizona, absolutely. So then in Asia, we've got Korea and Thailand and Hong Kong. Those are all also popular destinations, and Thailand mostly this year.
And I know you had mentioned what veterinarians, what they put as your dog breed. What role do the veterinarians have within your company? Do you use your own vet? Do you use the client's vet?
Either or. So if for international travel, veterinarians need to be accredited by the USDA, and not all veterinarians are accredited by the USDA, and even some that hold that accreditation still don't want to do health certificates. So we're finding more and more people's own veterinarians aren't doing international health certificates. And we try to assist in that as much as possible with that process so that we can get more veterinarians to do those health certificates, because, we're going to run into a problem if all the veterinarians suddenly stop doing international health certificates, because they just don't want to deal with the paperwork. So we take that paperwork process out of their hands. What we do is we'll, like I said, research the country's requirements and make sure that the client's documents are all in order for what the USDA wants. We fill out the health certificate for them. There's actually an electronic portal with the USDA now that the veterinarians can submit the documents electronically. So we can upload all of those documents to the portal for the vet. And then we keep an eye on that portal to make sure that if any documents have been returned, then we assist with getting the corrections that are made for those certificates. Or once we see it has been endorsed, then we let the client know. And, we track the FedEx package if it needs to be returned via FedEx as well.
So as a Canadian living in Arizona and doing business here, so a lot of my clients are actually Canadians. What is the rules for bringing their pet from Canada to Arizona?
There's actually no health certificate requirement for either Mexico or Canada at the moment. There is a requirement for puppies going to Canada. I believe it's under 7 months that they want an import permit, and it's more to stop like illegal transport of puppies and breeders bringing, huge undocumented dogs in.
Right.
So if you have one puppy that happens to be 6 months old, you probably won't have an issue. However, if you have 10 puppies that you're trying to get across the Canadian border, then it's probably going to be a more stringent requirement for them to look through all of that paperwork.
I am actually on the board of directors for Barb's Dog Rescue. We have a location in Peoria. So
Okay.
years ago, one of my friends came to visit in my condo in Mexico, and I was fostering a little puppy. And she said, "I want this dog." I said, "Well, you can have her." So I kept her until she was old enough to go, and yeah, she made her way to Canada. Nice. I remember she had to get some sort of import thing.
Right.
If I'm planning to go to the UK or any kind of international travel, what is your advice for a timeline? When should someone reach out to you?
Really, the best time to reach out is as soon as you know. As soon as you know that you're moving somewhere and you have a pet, it's best to reach out at that point in time and just get at least some advice, if nothing more. Now, if your move is 5 years away, well, a lot can happen in 5 years, so we probably can't give you that much. But 1 year is fine, and there are certain countries that take even more than 6 months to prepare for. Japan, Australia, New Zealand, those all have about a 7 to 8 month planning process before your pet can even travel. So depends on where you're going, but for island countries, those are the ones that don't have rabies, it's best to start earlier. If you're moving to Europe or Asia or something, then I would say it's probably like 3 months is a good time, 2 or 3 months ahead of note. And then that way your pet just doesn't have to stay here while you travel on, because that's what we found mostly with people who haven't traveled far enough ahead and they've booked their own flights. Well, then their pet has to stay behind until we can get them up to speed on the health requirements.
Outside of the regular dogs and cats, what other animals have you helped transport to you?
Since COVID, it's been a shorter list. COVID, we kind of put the kibosh on everything other than dogs and cats because it was just too hard to move anything. We've redid that, but we've helped iguanas move to Amsterdam. We've done a hedgehog a couple of times, one to Boston and then another, and then back to Portland and then to Toronto. So hedgehog went to Canada. We've helped some rats. Actually, they were on America's Most Talented something, and they went to Italy to perform on Italy's Most Talented. So they're famous rats, and so we moved them to, or helped them travel to and from Italy.
Oh, interesting.
Be on the show. Yeah.
So for someone who wants more information, wants to talk to you about relocating or transporting their pet, how do they find you? How do they reach out to you? Do you have a website or Facebook group with information?
Absolutely, both. The best thing is probably our website. We have 3 different quote requests depending on what you're looking for. But petsfly.com, fairly easy. That's the website. And you can find my picture and bio on there. And you can give me a call. My phone number's listed. Both of our other move coordinators, Katie and Brenda, are also listed on there. But sending in a quote request is the best way to get started so that the quote team can start researching what's going on and get back to you.
That's great. Thank you so much for being on the show today. It was super informative.
Well, thank you very much.
I don't know if I'm going to chance taking the dogs across the border or not.
I would just say been away from them for that long.
Or have they only been I don't even know if I've ever been away from them for overnight, so it's more stressful for me.
Right. And that it is. I would just say check often. Check the requirements often and stay updated.
Okay, for everyone watching and listening, we will be posting Jenny's information on the edits. Loretta Sernowski from Remax Fine Properties in Scottsdale, Arizona. Everyone have a great weekend. By the way, this week I had competing offers on one of my listings. Not sure if we're getting back into that time again, but the market has certainly picked up. So if you're interested in having me come over and give you an evaluation, 480-822-9416, Indian Realtor in Arizona, gmail.com. Everyone enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks again, Jenny. Have a wonderful day.